Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices of the Goddess podcast, where we empower, inspire, and uplift women to become the goddesses they were meant to be. I am Julietta, the magical PT, one of your co hosts. I am a physical therapist here in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida, originally from Wisconsin, and I am a solopreneur. I opened my own physical therapy practice. I've been in private practice for almost 20 years now, but in 2020, I decided that I wanted to be by myself and work alone. And part of that is because I work in a very alternative, holistic manner. I help people balance their body, mind, and spirit, because if you only look at the body, you're missing a great portion of our healing capacity. So we got to look at the mind and the spirit as well, addressing those emotional issues that hang out in our tissues. And
that was funny.
Issues in our tissues. And I'm also an artist and a jeweler, and even I'm a healer all around, because even the jewelry and the art that I create is also, it has a healing basis to that. So that's about me.
I love it. So my name is Allison Mancini, and I am also here in South Florida in sunny Fort Lauderdale, where we've had the treat of cooler weather lately. And I'm originally from Michigan. Grew up there, but I have been down in Florida for, it'll actually be 29 years next month. Holy cow. That's crazy. I know. It's crazy. And I am a mom to 2 adult children, 25 and 22, a wife to 1 man. He's a pretty good guy. I'll keep him. We've been together for 30 years. I'll keep him at this point. No, I do really love him. He's fantastic. So, and I'm a holistic nutritionist. Functional nutrition is my thing. It's my love language. I'm also a human resources director for a social media marketing company. And my passion is all tied into that. I love helping women stay healthy, stay well, so that they can be their best, because I know firsthand when you don't have your health and you don't feel well, it is very hard to do all the amazing things that we women do and want to do and become awesome goddesses that we are. And I'm the co-host of this fantastic podcast. So that's my story.
Well, and what you were saying right there really feeds into what I wanted to talk about, being preventative medicine. Right. You got to where you are because you were really sick and needed care. Mm-hmm. A lot of my clients, when they first come to me, it's because they're in pain, they're hurt. And, our healthcare system in this country is really a disease management system. And it's really the wrong way to look at things. And if we did more preventative care and took care of ourselves, because we're always off balance, mm-hmm. but we just don't know it because our body compensates for those things. Mm-hmm. And eventually the body gets tired of compensating and wears out and then gets sick or get injured. Yep. And that's when people seek out the care. Really, we should be caring for ourselves all along, so that it's rare to non-existent that we end up with disease and injury. And that's one thing I feel really good about. Is many of my clients, they originally come to see me because they're in pain, but once they've seen what I do and experienced what it feels like for their body to be in balance, they want to stay that way. So many of my clients come regularly. I have the ones that have the financial resources that come every single week, mm-hmm. to get their body balanced out. I would say more typical is once a month that they would come to get balanced. And then I have those people that come, 3 or 4 times a year because that's what's in their budget, but mm-hmm. they take care of themselves. It works. And it's the same thing with nutrition. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, so many people don't start looking at it until they're having a health crisis. Yeah. Whereas
that was me.
Mm-hmm.
That was me. I really didn't think much. I just ate what I wanted to eat. Didn't think much about the food that I put in my mouth. If it tasted good, that was my scale of what to eat and not eat. To eat tasted good, which we all well know that A lot of things that aren't good for us taste really good, but they're just not good for us. It was actually really incredible that we're talking about this. Made me think about on Monday night, my husband and I were going out to dinner and we were driving by a fast food restaurant and I looked at it and I went, holy cow. I'm like, is that the line to the back? I'm like, that's the line to, it was blocking the whole roadway. I was like, what? And it wasn't the fast food restaurant I know most people are thinking when they say the road is blocked, because there's one particular that always causes blockages because everyone goes to it. It wasn't even that one. It was a different one. And I was like, wow. I'm like, I understand. Listen, I understand. I did that when my children were little. You can ask my daughter. We laugh about it now. Not so funny. I used to like bribe her with McDonald's chicken nuggets. Yep. Functional nutritionist here. I used to bribe my kid with, but that's before I knew what I know now. And I kick myself so much. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't. I understand that I went with what I knew. I now know better.
You did the best you could at the time.
Yes.
And when you know better, you do better.
Exactly.
Thank you, Maya Angelou.
Yeah, there you go. And it just amazes me when you really think about it, everything we put in our bodies and everything around our body. So whether you're putting it in your body or on your body or mentally, whatever's in your environment affects the way your body works. And so when you look at it that way and you think about every time you put that, I don't know, processed donut in your mouth, that's the energy you're giving your body. You're giving your body that kind of energy, which is eventually going to catch up.
Allison, now I want a donut.
I'm sorry.
I'm joking.
But no, it's so true. And you know what? I am a poster child for someone who was not treating my body preventatively. I truly, and this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I do. And I'm sure this has to do with where you ended up too, to a point, is that I saw firsthand the difference in taking care of myself, what a huge difference it made, not only in my own life, but in my family's life and in the people around me. And it just snowballs to your community, to the people you work with. It affects everybody. So preventative care is huge. It's so important.
Yes.
Take care of yourself, people.
That's our public announcement for the day.
PSA.
So right now, we want to talk about our sponsor of our January episodes is the amazing photographer, Graciela Valdez. She is an award-winning, published, and professionally certified portrait photographer specializing in boudoir and personal branding. She creates custom and concierge portrait experiences that are transformative and life-affirming. Whether it's an intimate portrait honoring your highest self or a professional and engaging portrait for your business, she takes pictures of who you are, not just what you look like. And I couldn't agree more with that. I hate having my picture taken, but I love it when Graciela takes my pictures. She makes it such a about yourself. And I can't wait for you to have your pictures taken with her, Allison. You're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
It's because the dog's in the background. If you want to see some of Graciela's work, you can just go to our Facebook group and see Julietta's amazing picture. It's so cool.
Yes.
So cool.
All right. Let's bring on our guest.
Let's do it. Hello, Leslie. How are you?
I am doing great, Allison. I was laughing when you were talking about the cooler weather where you are, because this morning on the news, they were talking about the fact that they had issued falling iguana warnings.
Oh, yes.
In Florida.
We do have those.
Yeah. Well, for 5 years when I was growing up, we lived in Venezuela because my dad was a petroleum engineer. So I have had, very up close and personal experience with iguanas. Mm-hmm. Now, we never had the problem of worrying about them, being so cold that they started falling out of the trees. Mm-hmm. But we did have the problem of being up in the mango trees because we'd play in the mango trees. We did have a problem of reaching for a mango that the iguana had decided he was going to eat. And, those 6 foot long iguanas can be rather fierce and ferocious. So I was laughing as I'm listening to this story about the falling iguana warning, and I'm thinking, okay, there are a lot of people who really cannot appreciate the hazard.
True.
So the
It's actually
crazy
really
thing is
sad.
that sometimes people they think that they're dead, and they pick them up and they put them in their car, and then they thaw out and wake up in their car and rip their car, the inside of their car to shreds.
Yeah.
So
It's actually
don't do
really
that.
sad. Yeah.
Well, and that was the other thing that I was laughing about, is that, people don't understand that they're reptiles. And, so if they're cold, they're just moving very, 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 very slowly. And yes, I can imagine the people picking them up, and being kind and putting them in the car or taking them in the house to dispose of them. And all of a sudden, you've got this 6-foot creature, with these nails, and it's destroying your house. And I don't know what kind of iguanas you had, but the experience that we had was they had these really long tails, and we learned very quickly, you stay away from the dadgum tail because they'll whip that thing around. So anyway, I was laughing as you were talking about where you're from, because, here we are. We don't have any iguanas. We have geckos.
But you have scorpions and stuff, don't you, there?
Not where I am.
Not where you are? Okay.
No, that's kind of more out west, down south, towards the desert and things. I mean, we have, but you guys probably have them too. We have, the 25-inch flying cockroaches.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
But Leslie, can you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Other than listening to stories about falling iguanas. Well, as you said, I'm Leslie Davis, and I last year published a book called You Can't Eat Love, and it's about learning to love yourself and changing your relationship with food. And the reason that I wrote the book was I realized that there was another me out there, because several years back, something happened and I had, a choice of going one of two directions. And I decided I wanted to be healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. And like you guys, when we come to a crossroads in life, we can pick a path. And like you guys, you decided to make choices so that you could live your very best life. That's what I did. I decided to live my very best life. And on that journey, I discovered that what I thought I was missing, I had, and what I didn't understand was the only thing I was missing was loving myself. And what I thought that I was missing was the love of everybody else. But I had that. I just didn't love myself. And so really it became a journey to learn to love myself. And in the book, I talk about filling the myself-sized hole in my heart with love instead of filling it with food. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. I am a wife. I am a mother. I've got 3 kids. They're all still alive. The oldest one is 37, almost 38. The second one is 35, and then the youngest one is 26. I have to do math in my head to keep up with their ages. And I've got 2 dogs and, 4 grand dogs. So, life is exciting. Life is interesting. And then I get to talk to people like you, which is so much fun.
Yay. So you've already been very entertaining. So I'm really looking forward to your answers to our questions. The first one of which is, what one book do you wish every goddess would read, and why?
Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff is the first book that I would suggest. The second book that I reference a whole lot is If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Okay, so let's talk about the first one first. The reason that I suggest that people read the book by Kristen Neff, somebody told me that I should read the book, that, it would be very, very helpful. And so I bought the book. It sat on the shelf for a couple of years. Then I moved it to the table next to where I sit on the couch. I guess I thought that I was going to read it by osmosis. I don't know. But I opened the book up and holy cow, talk about revealing the answer to the universe. Because what she does in very, very plain English and through experience is she talks about self-compassion, how to take care of yourself, how to be kind to yourself. And this is something that in society, females really are not encouraged to take care of themselves or be kind to themselves. And when I read the book, I had already come to understand that I needed to put my own oxygen mask on first. And what that means is I needed to take care of me before I took care of anybody else. Well, her words helped me to solidify in my mind what I was already theorizing. And there's nothing wrong with being self-compassionate. There's nothing wrong with putting your oxygen mask on first. There's nothing wrong with being kind to yourself. There's nothing wrong at all with putting yourself first, taking care of yourself first before you do anything else. And truth of the matter is, and I tell people this all the time, I had spent over 17 years sacrificing myself on the altar of everybody else. Because I worked at a job where I spent probably 60 plus hours. Then I still came home and took care of the family and all that. And I was not getting anything back, really. Yeah, you mean, yes, I got a paycheck, but paycheck, that's not the same thing. Right. And the paycheck didn't even really match the value that I was giving. So once I understood that I was sacrificing myself on the altar of everybody else and everything else, it was like, okay, I had to learn how to take care of myself. And truthfully, our society does not encourage women, especially, to put themselves first. But let's look at this oxygen mask thing, because this is what really nailed it home for me. You have 30 seconds when that plane loses pressure. 30 seconds. And if you're running around putting oxygen masks on everybody else, guess where you are going to be when that plane lands? You're going to be laid out in the aisle. They're going to step over you and say, there's that very nice person who helped me out. And on occasion, they may think about you. But where are you going to be? Where are you going to be? And then the other book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, it's circular logic. Because, let's think about this. When we do something for someone else, what is the next expectation? And then the expectation after that. And then the expectation after that. And then it circles all the way back around to they want another cookie, right? So if we can understand the consequences of our actions, our deeds, and we can understand that it can circle back around, then we can understand where we are willing to let that circle end. And it may not even be a complete circle. Or, in the case you guys work with clients and customers, you may want that circle to close and keep going again. Mm-hmm. So if we're just thinking about, okay, when we do this, what's the next thing that's going to be happening?
I remember hearing about If You Give a Mouse a Cookie years ago. It's not a book that I have not read, but I definitely plan to check that book out. So thank you. So our next question to you is, and you touched on the importance of this for you, but what is your top self-care practice and how does it support you in what you do?
My top self-care practice is that every morning, non-negotiable, I get up between 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Why so early? Because it's quiet. The dogs are still asleep. And I read inspirational words. I have 2 or 3 books that I read that have inspirational words in them. I read 2 verses from the Bible every morning. I read a psalm. I read proverb, and then I read a chapter in the Bible. And then I have a 3-page conversation with myself in a notebook that I've got. I do not journal. Do not tell me that I journal. I don't journal. I just write in a notebook. Totally different thing, and anyway, that way I'm able to have that conversation with myself before I ever have a conversation with anybody else. And it's really helped me to sort thoughts out in my head and to get clear on things that I'm struggling with. But also, it helps me if I'm in the middle of, I don't know if you've ever done this, having an internal argument with yourself and somebody else, but having it out loud really would not be productive because the other person is not at the same place where you are. So it could really cause problems. So anyway, writing in the notebook, I'm able to have that internal conversation with the other person, and it usually works out quite well because they're not actually involved. But after I do that, I'm ready for my day. Yes, my day does get started pretty early. But I've just found by doing that, by centering myself, by making sure that I'm taking care of myself, I feel empowered for the day. If I have occasion where something happens and I'm not able to do it, I feel tense and anxious most of the rest of the day.
I love that you said it's non-negotiable too. That's because that's where we all need to get with our self-care practices, is that they are non-negotiable. We get to, as you said before, we put our oxygen mask on first, and that's your oxygen mask. So perfect.
Yep.
Our third question for you is, we all have those days where it just feels difficult to show up that day, but we have to do it anyway. So when you're having one of those days, what tool do you pull out of your back pocket to make it happen?
Usually gratitude. I will start listing things that I'm grateful for. I will, if it's something I really don't want to do and I'm kind of eye rolling about the whole thing, I'll say, now, wait a minute, just take a deep breath. What are we grateful for right now in this moment? And I discovered that gratitude can help me shift my mindset. Now, does that change how much I want to do the thing? No, not at all, really. It just changes my attitude about approaching it. And then the other thing that I will tell myself is, you're only doing it for X amount of time. If it's something that I've got to do, it's only going to be for a finite period of time. Mm-hmm. And since you guys have had kids, you can, understand this. If it's something really that I really and truly don't want to do, it's going to take me a while to do it. I say, you know what? You were pregnant for 8 months, 3 times. You can do anything.
Yeah, it feels that way after you go through that for sure. No doubt about it. All right. So our last question for you is, what life experience has formed who you are today?
To be extremely honest, my mother died, 38 years ago this year. And I did not grieve her loss because I did not know how to grieve. But also, my oldest child was born 2 weeks after she died. And then my first Mother's Day as a mother was my first Mother's Day without my mother. So I lived for quite a few years in extreme conflict and emotional repression, which is why I've, went to my drug of choice, which is food. So that kind of colored my life for a long period of time, but it was coming to terms with her grief, with her death, and my grief, and being able to really mourn the loss that helped me to really liberate myself so that I could love myself and appreciate, how amazing and wonderful I really am. And I will say to people over and over again, based on my experience, we need to teach small children how to grieve loss, even if it's the loss of a toy, so that when they are confronted with the big loss, they have the tools and they have the ability and they have the language to be able to handle that. Because so many times we want people to get over it, and you don't get over it. You don't get through it. You just do the best that you can. Sometimes it's an hour a day, sometimes it's a minute a day, sometimes it's a second a day. But I would say that probably was the most defining moment in my life, because my mother was here, and then there's my mother is not.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. I lost my mom 10 years ago. And, at the time, being a small business owner, and I pushed so much of my grieving down because I had to live and I had to get things done. And it took me a long time to finally allow myself to fully grieve. And it was like, I almost say it was like being born again, because with me stifling everything and shoving it all down, I wasn't really living at that time. And it wasn't until I let that grief come out that I felt like I could actually be me again. So grieving is super important.
Well, when we don't feel our emotions, when we do not allow ourselves to really experience and name and confront our emotions and even just sit in them, as a good friend of mine says, they come out sideways. They will come out. They will show up. And I guess you could say that I'm on a one-person mission to encourage people to feel, to honestly feel. And I say this in the book, no one can make you anything except reservations for dinner.
Very true.
That's good.
How you feel is how you feel.
Yeah.
And we often say, well, so-and-so made me such and such, or, I made such and such, such and such. No one can make you anything except reservations for dinner. How you feel is how you feel. That's an honest feeling. And that's the end of the conversation right there.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. My lovely co-host had taught me that a couple years back, when I would feel bad for feeling a certain way, and she would look at me and say, "You are totally allowed to feel all your feels. Like, go for it." So it's true. I like how you said that. End of conversation. That's it.
Yeah. So sometimes we just need to put a period. That's it. Mm-hmm. Period. It's not even next paragraph. It's not even new page, or it's just period. End.
Yeah. So we are going to wrap this up and ask you if there was one thing that you would want the audience to remember from our time together, what would that be?
The most important thing is that no matter where you are, no matter where you think you are, no matter who you think you are enough right now, just as you are. You are enough. And if you cannot believe that right now, I will believe it for you until you are able to believe it for yourself.
I'm like, thank you for that message. And as often as I tell other people that, and I know that, it still always feels good when someone says it. So thank you for that message.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Thank you for the message. Thank you for joining us today. This has been a phenomenal show. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Graciela Valdez, for making these episodes happen for us in January. And thank you also to our listeners. We really appreciate you. And if you've liked what you've heard today, please like, follow, subscribe to our channels wherever you're listening. And if you need to get a hold of Leslie, Allison, or myself, check the show notes. All our social media and contact information is in there. And it's a wrap. Have a magical day, everyone.
Thank you, Leslie.
Oh, thank you.